Applause to the organizer for setting up such an excellent show today. There were speeches, there were keynote presentations, very, very informative, very, very exciting. We had an excellent panel discussion, and after now that we know that what is the digital landscape of Pakistan, now the core and to the conclusion of the session, that what needs to be done to actually prevent the online frauds after this pandemic and after this uh, drastic change of digitization in Pakistan. We have certainly and suddenly seen a surge in an increase in online frauds. So we'll be talking on the topic that how to prevent digital frauds. And for this, I have a heavily loaded panel today. I have somebody from the law enforcement agency, somebody from the academia. I hope Mr. Imran will be joining us in a short while. As the tech guys, I'm sure I will not be able to justify myself when I if I introduce them. So I'll ask the participants, the panelists, to introduce themselves before I ask the question. So without wasting any time, my first question would go to Ahmed Zaim Saab. Ahmed Saab, would you please be kind enough to briefly introduce yourself?
Mohammed Ahmed Zaim. I'm from FIA Cybercrime, and I'm in cybercrime since 2008. And this is a brief introduction. Thank you.
Lovely. So when we talk about frauds and the name of so all eyes on you. So I'll be asking a very direct question. If you could share, keeping all the confidentiality protocol intact, would you be kind enough to tell us actually what kind of frauds have evolved recently with the increase of online services and with the game shift of COVID? What kind of frauds are actually you see in Pakistani industry?
Okay, we are getting complaints related to frauds regarding uh, business email compromise that in which remittance are involved. Secondly, financial transactions, individual banks accounts are compromised through social engineering, through other matters. And in recently there's an increase in sort of financial fraud related to individual customers of bank. You are getting spamming calls, scam calls from different Bolo Pakistan, ISPR, and FBR, and these type of, and they are doing transactions from the accounts. So there is an increase in financial fraud. More focus, if more focus, it's basically on individual level. On corporate sector, if
Individual.
we focus, there is a yeah, there is a compromise in which remittance is diverted from one account to another account, and these type of frauds are very rare, but the volume of loss is very much. So we have received both type of complaints, and we have done some operations with some with a very good bank in Pakistan, and they have supported us. So we can see there is an increase in fraud individual level, but not on corporate side. Corporate side, there are few complaints with us regarding financial transaction and the remittance is diverted and go to some other account. So you can say I think there is an increase in individual level.
What could possibly be the reason of these frauds? Is it just the non-awareness of the customer, or is it the infrastructure, architectural level flaws in our systems, or what?
No, there is number one basic is social engineering. Customer don't know, customer get compromised, get him compromised
Okay.
himself, gave in to the scammer, and I cannot comment on the side of architecture side. And frankly speaking, whenever we discuss these things with the banks, we haven't found any flaw, any big flaws on the bank side. Maybe there are some policy decisions. Which are on the both side, on the bank side and the regulator side. But frankly, but I think the major is loss is customer side by giving his information himself, getting some lottery information, and they start giving their pin code, their NIC numbers, their account number, their mobile number. So I think there's an if we count in percentage, 70% is lost due to the customer, and it's not due to the awareness. It's basically like you get a call, you get a lottery ticket, and you get some sort of tickets and advantages. You get a Corolla car, and you get compromised, and you can give your information. So I think there is much involvement of individual level.
All right, fair enough. So after that, what actually the steps that FIA is doing to counter these kind of frauds? I mean, specific targeted operations, some amendments in the policy, uh, new hirings, awareness levels, outreach. What are the steps that you're taking?
Okay. We are taking number one step is basically we have created three pages on Twitter and on Facebook and on WhatsApp group. What we are doing, we are giving individual level information to every customer, everyone that don't give your account information to any scammers. Number one, this is related to scam awareness. On the other hand, we are discussing the loopholes with the banks. Right now, we have engaged few banks, commercial banks, not regulator, to diagnose where is the flaw. Because during the last operation, we have observed there was some sort of, we can say, there is some sort of loophole in the app of a telecom operator. So the transaction was made by the hackers, and the app was used. But on there was something with the banks also, which we have done where we have discussed it with the banks, and they have removed that errors. Secondly, there are some issues which need to be addressed by the regulator. For example, there is a transition time. Uh, I We discussed with Ali also, HBL and other banks also, how to we they, after discussing with the culprits, we came to know that they 3 seconds, 4 seconds, the transaction get out from the any Mobi Cash account or any Tamir Bank account, Easy Pesa. If we delay the transaction, so in that time the customer get aware, he get SMS, and he can call the bank. Right now, when the customer get SMS, the transaction is done. Now then, when we talk to bank, they said it's a policy decision. Go to state
Already
bank
done.
and regulator and decide. Yeah. So these things need to be addressed by the regulator, by the FIA, and FIA is doing what FIA is trying to engage banks, state bank, commercial banks, and the individuals and the companies and the social media. We are working on every side. We have created a separate cell, media cell, which is only dealing with the financial fraud. So now we are trying, but it's little bit, we need more work, and we have done recently two big operations. One was with the HBL, and HBL was very kind. They supported us in field and all the things, and successfully, and we get 16 persons. We lost 7 cases, and this is the first time in the history of Pakistan that the whole cycle was completed, and from A to Z, all the gang got busted. But
Lovely.
for us,
Excellent.
this is a small portion. There are multiple gangs are working in the Punjab side, and they are doing this, and very surprisingly, the scammers are class two, class three, class four, five. Maximum they have
Oh,
the person that is in the area that known as a guru. His metric pass, and
my
he is
goodness. My
dealing with
goodness.
all everyone. He is creating the app. He's getting the accounts. He's getting the CNEC and identity cards, and we don't know from where they get fingerprints. They make a SIM, then they call as a scammer, and they call you or me, and we try to backtrack that calls, and we they get a locators, and suddenly we found that a SIM was issued from Multan, and the mobile was SIM was active at Faisalabad. So so
Oh,
there are many stakeholders involved. There are PTA and Pakistan Telecom Authority need to revisit their policy. State Bank need to discuss these things with the banks. Okay, how to technically overcome these issues. On the other hand, FIA need to be more aggressive. And we are doing. We have we have opened 15 more centers in Pakistan. So to get this all the things covered. So from my side, FIA side, we are doing not 200%, but up to some extent we have improved. And other side is State Bank, you know very well. Banking side, you know very well. So that there is joint team work required.
lovely, excellent. Just to add upon it, I think more laws, more frameworks need to be evolved. FIA gave the law of PICA, Prevention of Electronic Crime Act, in 2017, probably. And likewise, in 2017 and 18, State Bank gave a very comprehensive kind of framework, which is called Technology Risk Governance Framework. That was probably back in 2017 as well. Likewise, the other regulators might need to come up and with laws, stringent laws, and then after the introduction of the laws, the most important part is the enforcement of those laws. So that's the sky is limit. The laws are there, yet few laws are again required, and then the enforcement is needed. So, concluding remarks from you, Ahmed Zaim Saab. What are the expectations from the corporates that you look forward?
Sir, from my side, we need cooperation from corporate sector regarding their system. There are some loopholes in the banking system, which these fraudsters knows very well, and we also came to know through them, frankly speaking, and they show us where they are playing. That was shared with the concerned banks. Okay, now the other side is regulator. Regulator need to improve. Regulator means State Bank and PTA, both are the basically main role players. And lastly, the individual level. The now the
True.
awareness. We have done a lot of discussion on awareness, but we need help from corporate sector, financial sector, individual corporate sectors to aware their customers, their employees, how to many of the employees lost their salaries just because of non-awareness. So this is the corporate responsibility. We ourselves in FIA now started to educate our staff, okay, how to respond on a transaction, or how to get, because our senior officers are also get compromised. Even the senior officers got calls from fraudsters and they lost their money. So these are the factors we need. In a concluding remark, we need help from everyone to help us and to kill them.
Thank you very much, Zainsa. Very comprehensive response. Excellent. Very informative. Now I will move on to Shafiq Daud Sab. Shafiq Sab, thank you very, very much for joining us. Um, Very crunchy, very crispy questions to you. When I look at myself in the mirror, I feel myself very smart. Everything is good. And I ask my wife, how am I looking? She says, a little bit of shave from here. You didn't shave properly. So you are somebody who is sitting out. You can tell us. We feel Pakistan is doing pretty good. So much is done. Yet, improvement, sky is the limit. Improvement is always required. So, very pertinent question from you is that Pakistan has done a lot, but how do you guys sitting outside the mature economies, in terms of digitization, in terms of financial numbers, how do you guys see at Pakistan that what is the pace of digitization? Is it good? Is it slow? Is it up to mark? Or is it phenomenal? And with this, what are the risks associated with that?
That is an excellent and brilliant question. So, first and foremost, assalamu alaikum to all the distinguished gentlemen in the panel. I would not consider myself the expert here. I think all of us are continuous learners, and we all have our strengths, right? So I come from a company called Group IB, and basically what we do is actually very similar to our
True.
distinguished speaker who just mentioned about catching criminals, catching threat actors. That's the main role of Group IB. And it's a very loaded question you mentioned. You know, you compared Pakistan against the mature economies. Trust me, mature economies are getting hit, big time, across all sectors, ranging from
Ah,
cross-channel attacks to bots to compromised data. I just pulled out an entire set of carding and dumps from Pakistan yesterday, in fact, and I have some data to share. But to be fair to your question, I always go on foundations and fundamentals, right? I look at Pakistan as having the opportunity to learn from the mistakes of others, even though they are mature economies. You see?
true,
So let's go fundamentals, right? On a
true,
demographic base, I see Pakistan as growing in terms of internet proliferation. We're talking about what, 20 odd percent year on year growth. So that's good. But there are other factors, right? How many percent of the population aged between 15 to 40 years old are actually using the internet? And what about literacy rates? Because one might think literacy rate is not connected to what we're talking about today, but it is. You know, and we're talking about a lot of issues. You mentioned something really important on terms of regulation. I look at it as regulatory reform rather than anything else. So it boils down to also other things such as data flows on a interconnectivity standpoint between countries, financial inclusion, how many percent of people in Pakistan are actually bankable. We want to achieve all of this at the same time, look at cybersecurity on a national level. Now, how do we use this opportunity to grow? And this is what we're looking at, a national level sort of change management program. you know so infrastructure 101, we need high speed internet access across the board, not just in specific sectors of business.
true.
uh, and in order to prevent such cyber attacks, we need to understand the methodology behind how we adopt a proper digital identity framework, per se. You mentioned regulatory reforms, and as we can see from certain countries, although there might be regulation, there might not be enforcement in the end of the day. So this is something to be
True.
considered. How do we enforce? And after we enforce, what do we do with the guy that we just caught? Do we have an actual law on it, or we're going to work on the fly? So how do we learn? Because the cyber threat is ever evolving today. One guy might be, producing a card dump worth 3.3 million. That's the exact value for the card
Ah,
dumps in 2019. 3.3 million US dollars in terms of card dumps. I have other numbers as well. It's about like 227,000 in terms of compromised data of credit cards that Group IB has seen coming out of Pakistan. And we're in quarter two now. Quarter one, we're talking $440,000 worth of textual card dump data. And card dumps in itself was forming about $198,000 worth. We're already in second half of the year, and we've already seen about $224,000 worth of compromised card data, and about 76,000 so far as of yesterday, 24th of August. This is a grave concern. Before we start moving into
true.
cloud computing, IoT, 4G, 5G, we need to understand what can we do on a national level as a first line of defense. And this is
True.
this is something that we need to pull people not only from law enforcement, on an inter law enforcement transnational crime perspective, but we need to have adept systems that can take care of our financial institutions, our military, our energy sectors across the board. Yeah.
What do you actually mean when you say adaptive systems for the financial institutions?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Adapt systems here. Basically, the financial institution
Yeah.
requires systems that monitor on a national level. So, assuming like for certain countries, they've been talking about national SOCs for the longest time. Even in APAC sector, right? and they don't really truly have a national SOC per se. So we in Group IB believe that when you build SOCs, you need to move away from the old way of thinking of just SIEMs, incident management systems. You need to perform threat hunting, and that brings me to capacity development. We want the youth of tomorrow in Pakistan, both the boys and the girls, to have the necessary foundations in order to be able to contribute and protect.
True, lovely. But let me talk about the organization, and what are the weak technical areas that we should ponder.
Your voice is not audible.
Some kind of
Am I
interference
clear
here.
now? Am I clear now? Uh,
Yeah, you can go on, I think.
Yeah, whilst waiting for Atullah. Can
Yeah,
you hear us,
Taula, we
Atullah?
can't hear you.
Atullah?
Taula, are you there?
I think, ladies and gentlemen, he might have a little bit of internet problems. How about the rest of the other panelists? Are they still visible and are they still there?
Yeah,
Are
we
the
can
rest of
hear
the other?
you.
Excellent. So
We can hear
maybe
you.
whilst waiting for Ataullah,
Shafiq,
maybe.
yeah, I think the second question basically about what are the areas that Pakistan needs to prevent these online frauds happening. So what are the areas do you think as a country Pakistan needs to improve to prevent these online frauds?
Yeah, absolutely. So, is anyone from the panel would like to take on this question,
hear
or
me
this
now?
question that I put?
Now that question is
A
for
lot
you
of
actually, Shafiq.
yeah. So, sorry, I still hear a lot of interference in the back.
So
Shafiq,
there's an interference in
can you
the
hear me now?
Yeah, okay, so maybe I could take it on. So what can we do, right? We need to increase the competency. Are you guys hearing me, and are you guys hearing the interference as well?
Yeah, there's a lot of echo
We
in
can
your
hear
voice.
you. It's just a lot of interference in the background, but we'll try. Well, in my humble point of view, I think we need to go fundamentals. Right? We need to make sure our networks are secure. We need to have proper processes, proper regulation. We need to have capacity-driven programs that should be led by government bodies. When we speak about regulatory reform, it's not just about one body deciding on everything. It's about working on an intergovernmental perspective, working even with private companies to better understand the global landscape. You know, these are some of the things that I believe are vital. We need advisories, not just on a state level, but it's a combination of global companies coming together. To showcase what we have and what we see going on because of the ever evolving threat. Can you guys hear me?
And I believe this is, yeah, Atta is back now, so you can.
Shafiq, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
So you're talking about infrastructure. It has rained in Pakistan, and look at the infrastructure.
There's
Yeah,
a lot of echo going on in the
infrastructure.
Shafiq, is my voice clear to you?
I can still hear your voice. After your voice, there's some sort of an interfering sort of echo.
Yeah,
It's fine. We can still
I
carry
can
on.
feel that. All right. My last question was about the SWOT analysis. What are the strengths of Pakistan when we talk about the digitization? And technically, what are the weak areas that we should improve upon?
Yeah, the strength of Pakistan right now is that it is in the growth mode, right? We have, as I mentioned just now, internet proliferation and a good amount of growth. You have the opportunities to take the right steps that a lot of other nations have not done well, at this point in time, and get the right steps and right footing. In terms of a weakness standpoint, I think it's not just Pakistan, but it's across the board. It's about capacity development. It's about having proper training programs, proper certification programs to make the younger generation having a good ecosystem of the curriculum of the educational institutions that are built with cybersecurity in mind, and having a state level guidance. State level guidance towards digital forensics, state level guidance towards having a proper threat intelligence program of collection, of analysis, of dissemination across other institutions, both financial, military, energy sectors, even retail for that matter. And this is something that will enable an actual ecosystem that will work together in harmony with law enforcement and also the justice system. And as you mentioned, this is a grave concern because for me, there are other issues within Pakistan as well, because we have hacktivism, and we all that leads to even potential radicalization. So cyber terrorists in itself. As you can see from other state banks that have been raided of their money, from groups like the likes of Lazarus, Cobalt, from a Swift perspective, the likes of even kiddie scripters defacing websites, causing reputational issues, to POS malware, ATM jackpotting, and ATM switching networks, and these are real concerns. And I think social engineering is leading the warpath towards it. This morning, I got socially engineered from a call center in India, pretending to be my bank and saying that my bank required a password reset. Yeah, this morning I
All
actually
right.
posted the video online. Yeah. So yeah.
so, so, so even people are not stopping to call you, uh, taking you as a security expert. Even they are trying to, hack on you as well.
Yeah, little did they know that we are actually trying to track these kind of guys. In fact, we have ongoing investigations, a multitude of ongoing investigations, not only APT threat actors. We found a new APT called Red Curl recently. And like I said, this is continuous evolution in terms of how they do their recon, their weaponization. If you don't have proper IOCs being disseminated on a national level, you just won't be in time. If you don't have proper incident response management on a country level, you just will not have visibility. The national cert will not have visibility on an orchestrated attack, both nation state or financially motivated ones. And this is my key concern. This is why we speak to nations, and we try to help give advisory on how they build their frameworks on a national level, how we work with certs, and etc. I do not want to take the thunder out of anyone else, so maybe I'll let the rest of the party speak as well.
No, excellent contribution. So national level strategy is the key and the concern of the time. and certainly we need a national level strategy. Thank you very much for the very valuable input. My next questions will be to Awais Ijaz. Awais, would you please briefly introduce yourself, please?
Okay, I work for Allied Bank and I'm the group head information security. I have a technological background. I was previously working with Cybernet and Warid, and then I joined Allied Bank in 2010, working as a network head. And then recently I've been, moved to information security.
Lovely. Wes, my first question will be regarding the governance area of information security, and then we will come to the online frauds part. First, uh, what are the issues relating to the governance in cybersecurity in terms of reporting lines, in terms of policies and procedures, not only in the banking sector, but across the different industries of Pakistan, as you see?
I think there is a lot of issue. Yeah, there is a lot of issue regarding governance, and there is one management hierarchy which we are following. Hello.
Yes,
Yeah.
please go ahead, Wes.
Okay. So there are certain policies and procedures which are to be made regarding the prevention of online frauds. Presently, I don't think so that there are complete policies and procedures which are in place in the banking sector for prevention of frauds, because what we have encountered over the last so many years, we've seen that mostly external frauds are due to the support of insiders. So there are malicious insiders. So we need to develop, policies and procedures regarding the stoppage of frauds internally, and definitely, governance would help out regarding, eradication of such frauds.
Lovely. How can we see a lot of identity theft frauds in the digital in Pakistan. How can we actually identify these are the identity frauds that are happening from
Okay,
the from a very
identity
technical
frauds.
perspective?
Yeah. Okay, identity frauds, impersonating a person's identity is a global phenomenon. It's not only in Pakistan, it's around the globe.
True.
So it can only be stopped through identity proofing. There are different identity proofing mechanisms which are developed across the globe. And traditionally, there was a time when banks used to have static data information from the users, and then they developed a phenomena in which they asked for more knowledge based details. Then we are seeing different one-time passwords being generated to verify the legitimacy of the user, and the passwords are being handed over through emails and through SMS. But as banks move into the digital era and more banks are digitizing, and we are seeing so much online account opening and KYCs being done online, and the whole portfolio is shifting into digital era. So nowadays what globally banks are doing is they are developing different applications, and there are different tools which are AI powered, tools, and they are having the biometric verification of the customers, as well as the facial recognition of the customer's voice is also being is being used as a mechanism to verify the legitimacy of the customers. And I was going through a very interesting study where they revealed that there are certain applications where one has to take the selfie and one has to also record the facial recognition, in terms of if you are uttering something, or you are blinking your eyes, you are moving your heads. So these mechanisms are being used to verify the legitimacy of the customer. Secondly, online sharing of ID documentation is also being verified through various like holograms and watermarks. So this is the new phenomena. Artificial intelligence is taking over the traditional static data gathering and the OTP part, and various security agencies in the world are relying on this artificial intelligence AI powered verifications.
And that's what we call offensive defense, rather aggressive
No,
defense.
offensive defense is something else. There is a cyberspace which every bank has, and you need to monitor your digital assets in the cyberspace. So that is a very different phenomena. It's a new phenomena as far as Pakistan is concerned, and we are seeing some very good happenings in the banking industry regarding cyberspace.
It is just like driving in Pakistan. You don't only have to save yourself, you have to save others as well.
Yeah, exactly.
So how to combat these? That's a rapid fire question in the end that will ask all the participants that how to combat these things. So quickly moving on, Dr. Imran Saab, we are really honored to have you. Dr. Imran Saab is from IBA. Quick introduction, sir. Dr. Imran Saab, we can see your lips moving, but we cannot really hear you. Is
Okay.
your mic unmute? Now, yes.
Yeah, it's unmute. Okay. So I'm very
Yeah.
glad to be part of this expert panel. And in the academia, basically, capacity building part is also very much important. And I used to say that everything is basically tied up with that too. So at the end of the day, we have to basically produce good graduates. We have to provide the capacity building sessions for the industry so that they can be part of that, they can get the advantage. So I really would like to share a few things with the audience. So recently, what we have done, we have initiated a number of diploma programs for the industry professionals, and one of them is basically the Infosec area. So I'm very glad to say that the industry is basically participating into that as well. And what we have done, this diploma is basically entirely different from the traditional bachelor's or the master's program. This is basically the completely hands-on kind of diploma that we have developed. Industry professionals are teaching that. So that's basically the main core. So in fact, to be very frank with you, this is 4 to 5 months diploma, and we have taken around 5 to 6 months to design the course of this diploma. So I'm very glad to say that the industry members have taken too much interest into that as well. We have already passed a couple of badges in that too, and we are trying to basically disseminate this information not only in IB only. Would like to basically this to formulate in the to the government level as well. So recently, I got a chance to work with the federal government, and we have initiated one program with the government that's basically the high tech training program. It's completely free of cost. It's completely funded project, and in this particular program, what we are doing, we are basically training a young youth because that's our strength. I used to say that the strength of Pakistan is the young youth. If you're going to basically utilize it in a better way, so it's going to make difference. So we have designed the course content for high tech courses for the young youth, and we were planning to start the courses before the COVID, but inshallah now we are planning to start either in September or October. So yeah, cybersecurity, fraud, the digital part, all these high tech, artificial intelligence, all these are part and parcel of this particular course. And one more thing I would like to highlight: we all are basically, in fact, our young youth are going for the digital. They really would like to do something by their own. So in one way, they are going online. On the other way, they really would like to protect as well the customer's identity, the credit card information. So the capacity building of this particular area is very much important.
Lovely, Dr. Saab. That's an excellent initiative that the industry is looking for, and I'm pretty sure that there will be much more difference between the graduates who are studying the traditional programs and the one which is being designed like you just said. And I'm sure Isaka Karachi chapter is very much partnering with you to design such courses.
Yeah.
And I tell you, Dr. Saab, there are few corporates who are going to different cities of Pakistan, and they are inviting all the universities in the particular city, and they are doing marathons for APIs, and they're giving it different names, epithons. And the students are coming with such an ideas, Ghar ka Mistri, I mean, such brilliant apps they're developing within 2 days that we cannot actually think of. But we certainly have got the talent, and if we actually shape up some such kind of programs, those will be very, very beneficial for the industry.
I strongly agree with you. In fact, let me share one story with you as well that's going to be very much appealing for the audience. Recently, we have signed the contract with the Sin government that's called Sin Research Incubation Center. So, what we used to do, we used to basically give 1 year to those students after select, and the criteria is pretty much simple. Should be good only in any discipline. If you have the idea, you can basically pitch that idea to the committees as well. By the way, ISACA is also part of this initiative too. So, in this initiative,
True,
what we
true.
are doing, we are basically going level, and in this particular 1 year period, we are providing the mentorship again from the industry professionals. We are providing workshop. So we have passed one batch already, and I'm very glad to say
Probably, Imran Saab, we cannot hear you. Uh, Again, excellent contribution from Imran Saab. Moving on, let me move on to my next panelist. Uh, Imran Saab, can you
yes,
hear
please
us?
go.
Are you done
Yes, I
with
can
your
hear you.
contribution, with your thought? All right. Moving on. Ali Naqvi, the tech guy. By the way, you look like a tech guy. Actually, you look like a tech guy. So, we the questions to you, the direct questions. How the banks are attacked these days? Since you work for a bank which is one of the systemic banks of Pakistan, one of the largest branch network, and a huge number of account in one single bank. So, what are the modus operandi of the fraudster these days?
Okay, thank you for again inviting me. Such a great panelist. Happy to be part of it. So I'll basically where Shafiq ended. So there are actually 30 different scams that's been happening around the world. 30 different kind of scams, including lottery, job alerts, you name it. In Pakistan, Zaim has already mentioned some of them. We are hardly experiencing 10 of them maybe. So the good part is the way that we share our threat intelligence and IOCs. I think this is a time where a digital risk protection should come into the picture as well. And all these scams we should learn from our other neighboring countries as well. That what kind of scams are happening. First thing. Now your second question is how these things are attacking the banks. In fact, I would say not the banks, more like a banking customers. So there are four
True.
modes of that's been basically happening. So one is phishing, second one is smishing, third one is spoofing, and the fourth one is BEC, business email compromise. So particularly what we have seen trends across the industry, and Zain would vouch for it, most of these trends are happening like this. I would tell you, it's just the latest stats that I gathered from one of the website. 92% of the cyber attacks are happening because of the phishing emails. All these
Still,
fraudsters, all these activists, they just need one door to enter. We put on all the big, high-fire firewalls, web application firewalls, DDoS protection, API security on our front doors. But the weakest link is actually our users. So one thing is basically the one particular modus operandi is basically they send phishing emails to the customers asking them to click on something, and then that particular link takes them to a phishing website that is a lookalike website of our online banking and the internet banking of a various banks. Second modus operandi that they've been using is they've been sending the SMSs. These are the smishing, we call it smishing. So they're sending these SMSs, and usually what they're doing is they're actually following some kind of patterns and campaigns as well. I'm talking about the fraudster. So if you remember, about a couple of years ago, in the PSG circular line, State Bank has asked basically all the customers to get biometric re-verified. Second campaign was the ATM recarding, reissuing the chip and PIN cards. So what they do is they actually take these kind of alleged campaigns, and then they basically ask the customers, okay, the switching, the fake SMS comes like, okay, your card has been blocked. Please call this number or please click this link to get your card activated. Or
True.
call this number, your account has been blocked. If you want to reactivate your account using the biometric, call this number. So this is particularly more like a modus operandi that I've been using. And in most of the cases, in I would say half of the cases, somehow these fraudsters have got some data, some personal data of the customer. So when these customers call back, they tell them, this is your name, this is your NIC number, this is your address, and I'm calling from the bank. So which is actually led them to believe that the impersonator is actually calling from the bank or it's a bank indeed. So this is basically what's been happening.
And compare it with the global phenomenon. Is it a global phenomenon same or huge change?
Oh yes, as I said, and one of the global banking fraud surveys on the KPMG. Again, everyone has seen the huge increase of these frauds. There are less sites, like cyber attack, cyber attack on the infrastructure, but they use these phishing and social engineering means to take out the money from the customers. And as Shafiq mentioned, ATM debt or
I think I
Excellent.
resonate with what you mentioned a lot. And we see that global phenomenon in terms of, I think I echo everything what was just mentioned, because we see the exact same thing. The amount of CVEs, the amount of compromised data, all this it's not just about online fraud. It's across the board. It's penetrating barriers. We can't categorize them and put them in buckets anymore. I know a nation state that's financially motivated. You know what I mean? Today, as it is. And this is something that we need to look at it in a holistic perspective rather than defining it as just okay, this is online fraud, this is fraud. As you mentioned, 30 different types. I agree with you. I mean, I believe we look through the same list, from fake surveys and scams to counterfeiting. But I'm more concerned about fundamentals. For example, answering the question, how do we take the steps necessary today? What's the first step? We know there's hundreds of different types of fraud, from targeted attacks to banks to retail to even energy sector. What is fundamental right now? I think fundamentally we need to get a lot of infrastructure in place, a lot of people in place, not just about purchasing technology from vendors. It's about how long will we take to make regulatory reform here? Who are the different bodies that we need to talk to, including law enforcement, to achieve a mature state of mind? Who do we benchmark ourselves against? We mentioned about mature economies. They're getting hit. They're getting hit big time. Are we going to follow their steps, or are we going to redefine ourselves? To get from the best brains, the best minds, form a steering committee, form a task force to sit down and do this more often, possibly.
yeah,
That's
Shafiq,
my
yeah,
two.
that's it. This is what that in developed economies, physical crimes have been shifted to online. Yeah. And I think we learn from them. And this is where basically, how we learn from them, we share all the stories. The share in the threat intelligence, what we gathered. Okay, ATM jackpotting happening in Malaysia. So, a bank basically in Pakistan came to know from a threat intel that your ATM jackpotting has been really active and hot market for Asia. So I think the similar kind of things should happening in terms of frauds as well. So we should know, we should learn from them as well. If anything is happening outside the world, apart from Pakistan, we should learn from them what is happening. Like one of the fraud that recently quite been happening in a couple of years is synthetic ink pen, where they can actually manipulate the checks and takes the so a lot of new things been happening, and human is actually greedy by nature, and this is what Foster used say. So they call them up, as Zaid was saying, all these scams that's been taking place. We will give you a car, and the car value is actually 1 million, which is the original value is 2 million, but we can give you 1 million rupees. So this is the greed that actually, uh,
True,
this
true.
is
Very much
why.
agreed. Very much agreed. But despite all of this, thanks God, Shafiq, that we are done with the era that we used to paste user ID and passwords with the monitors. Thank God we are done with that era.
Yeah.
And now, rapid fire question. I'll give 60 seconds to all participants. Two quick, meatish, crunchy, to the point tips to prevent frauds. Shafiq is starting from you.
Okay. To prevent fraud.
Two quick tips.
Wow.
Yes.
To prevent fraud, it's
Can
second.
we start?
You need connectivity. You need connectivity. You need people. You need IOCs. You need to have fundamentals. You need to work with transnational law enforcement agencies such as Interpol, Europol. You need to have regulatory reform. You need to understand who's attacking you and why. That's what my answer is.
Aves,
I think user awareness, information to the user about fraud, and secondly, I think big data analytics would help out. Artificial intelligence again. You can have your digital channels to data loop, and you can view the suspicious and abnormal patterns of transactions from where you can judge before the fraud can happen. So AI is the solution moving forward.
yeah. Zaim sir,
So for my side,
take
I
them to
think
jail.
we need two things. No, 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 sir. I think for me, from my side, we need two things. Like we need an organization like Europol and Interpol, because these both are not cooperating with Pakistan. And on the other side, if we see, we need a platform like PB and some other platform that can quickly stop the transactions and help us to trace the culprit. And then lastly, it's awareness on an individual level. That's all.
Ali, Ali next to you.
Two things quickly. One is a short fix, short platform to share these fraud stories. And secondly, fraud stories, mule accounts to stop the money, as Aim said. Second thing is, I think this is the time where banks should invest in technologies to detect these kind of frauds and counter them.
Dr. Saab, Dr. Imran Saab.
Yeah. Well, one thing that's basically very much obvious that you need to basically go ahead with the business intelligence kind of thing so that you can see the trends as well. That's basically very much important. The other part from the user's perspective is that they need to basically upgrade the operating systems, all the applications that they are using. This is also very much important in order to have the best practices there.
Thank you very much. So, national level strategy, AI, patterns, awareness. This was the crux. This was the key takeaway of the panel discussion. I'm so very much humbled and obliged with the excellent panel that we had. Thank you very much. Over to MC.